segue into our putter test. We released this last week. This was Wednesday. We kind of teased it. We didn't have all the data, so we didn't want to really go through it specifically. But first time that we've ever done this, which was a test specific to this burgeoning category of zero torque. You can call them low torque, no torque. I called it the great torque off of 2025. All things. What is up, everybody? How you living? No putts given. Tony's getting rid of the hiccups. What's your trick to get rid of the hiccups? I hadn't heard this one.
Big. You never heard of the giant spoonful of peanut butter?
No.
Yeah, that's my go-to. Giant spoonful of peanut butter.
Is it like 60% of the time it works every time, or is it better than that?
A 100% success rate, but it's like I said, there's some processing involved because you're like.
Yeah, I suppose I do the upside down water trick, like where you basically make yourself drink a glass of water upside down. Works every time. 100% success rate. So I don't know. Maybe other people.
Solving the world's problems today.
One hiccup incident at a time. I want to talk zero torque putters today. Because we did our test. We're gonna have to talk about that for sure. We'll talk about Keegan Bradley a little bit, his what's in the bag, because Srixon's on a heater. Kind of thinking if I had bought Srixon as a stock 3 weeks ago or so, that might have been a good idea. I did not, but maybe I should have. LPGA had a major at in Austin, Texas, at the new home of the PGA. It went okay.
Frisco.
It went okay, I think. We'll talk about that. We got to talk about that because there was some interesting stuff. And then a couple Japanese irons that we have to discuss.
We do? This is... Okay.
You have no choice. Well, you can do whatever you want. I'm just going to yap about them. You can leave. You can, not pay attention. You do whatever you want, Tony. But we got to start with Keegan Bradley. And before we start with Keegan Bradley, can we all just pour one out for Tommy Fleetwood? Is there anybody on the planet? I mean, again, okay, first world problems. Yes, he's won $30 million or whatever on tour. Never won in the...
Poor Tommy.
I mean, but to the degree you can feel bad for a guy, it's a professional golfer, an elite athlete, has made tons of money doing it, whatever. I feel terrible. As bad as I've ever felt for a golfer, I feel for Tommy Fleetwood. Am I just getting soft in my old age?
Oh, we talk all the time about it's always the conversation, best player to never win a major. And Tommy Fleetwood may be in that discussion, but he's the best player to never win a tour event.
I feel it could almost become a meme where it's best player to never have won whatever and fill it in. And it's probably Tommy Fleetwood. I feel like he's becoming the poster child for the best player to never win whatever. Now, we should couch this by saying he has won tons of tournaments internationally. He's won abroad. He won, I think, last year, right, in Dubai maybe. I have to double check. But he is a winner of professional golfing events. He just hasn't won the ones that are most notable or most publicized or however you want to phrase it. He just hasn't been able to get across the finish line for whatever reason. And again, so you're kind of waiting for the stars to align, so to speak. And I mean, Rory knows what this is like better than probably anybody, is waiting to get that win. Now the upside is Tommy has a chance every week he tees it up. So it's not just a major, even though there's 4 majors a year. But this week looked like it. You had a perfect storm in the sense that he was playing well, largely well enough. I mean, he was hitting every fairway. It seemed like all he wanted to do was make eagles on par fours, the drivable par four, and par fives. It seemed to be going his way. The third round, Scheffler's like, oh, Scheffler's in the lead. Here we go again. Nope, Scheffler makes a 7 on number 1, blades it out of a bunker, makes triple bogey, had made double to finish the day before, basically threw away 5 strokes that Scotty Scheffler never does. Justin Thomas makes a 9 on a reachable par 5 and basically slingshots himself out of the tournament. Rory did not play well enough to be in contention. So you have these super smart, that didn't play well enough to win. And here comes Tommy. Down the stretch they come. And
I feel like I'm watching a documentary right now, and even though you know how it ends, you hope like maybe you just remember it wrong.
Right. Starts the 4th round terribly. Had made like 1 bogey all week. Bogey's number 1. Now he's made 2. Bogeyed, 3 the first 4 holes, something like that. Threw in a birdie on number 2, and you're like, oh boy. Then he develops a 2-shot lead on the back 9, and you're like, oh, okay. Little space. Whew. Here we go. 3-putt on 18. Has wedge in hand. Should have hit the 9-iron. Wedge in hand from the middle of the green. If he makes a par with a wedge in his hand from the middle of the fairway to not a crazy tough pin, worst case scenario, he goes into a playoff. If Keegan Bradley somehow birdies 18, which of course Keegan Bradley does, stuffs it to like 6 feet, makes the putt. Because it's Keegan Bradley, it's a tournament in the Northeast.
It's New England.
Yeah, it's like...
You cannot beat Keegan Bradley in New England. It cannot be done.
No. So the guy from Old England can't beat the guy in New England or whatever. And Tommy, 3 putts, heartbreaking. I just want the guy to win. I think it'd be such a popular win for the Fairway Jesus. But not to be this week. Not to be. So, anyway, what can we learn? So Keegan Bradley does win. What can we learn from Keegan's bag? Like, when you take a look at it, what should consumers look through there and go?
It's it's very familiar, right? To an extent, because you have a Srixon staffer.
Yep.
Cleveland Srixon.
Yep.
And so you look at the bag,
yep,
and I feel like it's what we've been seeing.
Irons, wedges, ball. Right?
Yeah, so you've got, all right, he's got Srixon irons.
Yep.
And, ZX7s.
Yep.
Cleveland wedges.
Yep.
And then you move the other direction, like not a Srixon driver, which has kind of been what we've seen.
Yep.
In this case, it's a Ping G430, so not the latest and greatest either.
Nope. Nope.
And then you move the fairway woods, a pair of TaylorMade QI10s, which again, this all seems familiar. The one thing that stood out there was like the in his 7-wood, and actually both of them, Aldila Rogue white
130s.
shafts.
Yeah, the old 130 MSI. Again, not new. I love his bag because it makes me think a little bit of like when we get to the end of the tour year. I think it'd be really fun to look at the winningest setups, and you look by model or brand or this, that, whatever. But it also kind of lends this discussion of, I want to look at the setup of tour players. What clubs did they use that won the most money and were non-contracted? So like, in this case, what would count toward that would be like a Ping driver, the TaylorMade fairway woods, right? And
an Odyssey putter.
And
that surprised me too. Maybe it's kind of just at this point you expect to see like, all right, TaylorMade fairway woods lab putter. There we go. That's how you win tournaments.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting to is like, what would the prototypical, like we kind of joked like last year for sure this was the case. I think other companies have, I don't know if I want to say caught up, but maybe modified their approach so this doesn't happen as much. But it seemed like the spot in the bag, one of the spots in the bag that was like that was T-Grind, Vokey T-Grind. It was like, hey, this is like the unofficial wedge of the PGA Tour. Like you show up to an event and they give you 60 T-Grind, right? Everybody kind of had one, or it seemed like a lot of guys had one in the bag. This year, what's that story going to be at the end of the year? Is it TaylorMade fairway woods again? Is it something else? Like it's. And this is 3 weeks in a row now that we're talking Srixon Irons, which I'm sure Srixon loves. I'm sure they're happy about Ryan Fox, JJ Spahn, and now Keegan Bradley.
Good old Ryan Fox.
I know people maybe didn't. He did win in Canada. That was kind of a big thing. Yeah, but that's 3 weeks in a row for a company that I don't know that people could name 3 staffers. And so talk about over-indexing and man, like I said, Srixon on a heater, particularly in the tour use category. I'm sure they're selling lots of irons as they should be. Our testing would indicate that that's a good thing. Anything else on his bag there, or anything else you want to point out?
Again, like I said, the not a lab putter is almost surprising at this point.
The not a lab putter.
Yeah, hey, Odyssey, AI1, Cruiser, Jailbird. So there you go. But yeah, and you mentioned it, Srixon the Z-Star Diamond, so kind of the other Z-Star, if you will. Seems to be the one that gets the most tour play, or at least the one that is winning lately. And again, that's the one. If you're saying, hey, I really want to play a Srixon ball for no other reason than I want to play a Srixon ball, which one would you recommend in terms of quality, consistency? Like we've gotten the best results with the Diamond.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, and there you have it. Segue into our putter test. We released this last week. This was Wednesday. We kind of teased it. We didn't have all the data, so we didn't want to really go through it specifically. But first time that we've ever done this, which was a test specific to this burgeoning category of zero torque. You can call them low torque, no torque. I called it the great torque off of 2025. But there were enough putters in that category for us to justify our own putter test on just that. So let's go big to small, like just kind of high level.
What do we want? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I think 17 models, which is crazy for a category that barely existed a year and a half ago. So yeah.
Anybody missing from that list of 17 that you're kind of surprised they don't have like a retail-ish one ready for testing?
I think the glaring one, 2 glaring ones, obviously, right? Scotty Cameron, which, still probably dollar share may still be number 1 at retail, but I won't swear to it. It's right there with Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
We see that on tour. 1 and 2. Actually, I believe Odyssey is 1 at retail.
Okay.
But yeah, 1 and 2. And so Scotty is so far sat out the 0/low/no, whatever we want to call it, this torqueless category. And the other one, obviously Ping, just kind of company that kind of started as a putter brand. To date has nothing. So those are the 2 that kind of stand out, I would say, as not being in the market. But I expect that will change. We have reason to believe.
Yeah, I was gonna say in a year from now, if we redo this test, do you think that's still the case?
I think there's definitely a Scotty. I think there's definitely a Scotty and maybe a Ping. So yeah, I think at this point now we have reached the point where you kind of have 3 viable kind of choices in putters, if you will, between and obviously most of what's in the zero torque test would qualify as a mallet, but obviously a little different take. But so you kind of got call it traditional blades and blade like putters, traditional mallets, and then these zero torque designs, which by and large, outside of really the link and one of the antidotes, I would say you're pretty much entirely mallet based.
Yeah. So just big picture in our test, what performed well, what didn't? Kind of run us through the results.
Yeah, so your top three, first overall, the Lab Oz 1i, so that's the
Insert.
Oz with the insert. The Spider, the TaylorMade Spider 5K ZT, which is one that was that one's gotten, I would say, at least from the guys that we know, the test facility, Dave, our putter guy, this is one that guys just really seem to like. For whatever that counts for. And then third, the Betnardi
For whatever that
antidote.
counts. They love that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, counts for
I hate
something.
it. So yeah, and then so that's your top three.
Okay.
And it's interesting because in this test, not a ton of separation, so it's easy to go, oh, look how far down the list, pick one finished.
Right. Right.
But they, nothing was that far off, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think a little bit of, we use these analogies all the time, but like, and I would love to see us do more of this where maybe there's a critical point at which it's like, hey, highly recommended, and like not recommended, kind of a red, green, yellow type situation where it's like, okay, on this one, you have an overall handicap. The Lab 101 was 7.6, minus 7.6, and in this test, minus is better. But it goes all the way through the end where there's like a minus 3.6. So, right, so you got
3.6. Yeah, the Odyssey was. It's interesting. The Odyssey square to squares were the ones that, if you were going to look at a couple and go, yeah, those certainly kind of struggled and were outside. But even like the Lab DF3 was down near the bottom too, and obviously we know that's you can win tournaments with that putter.
I think JJ Spawn did.
So,
yeah.
So it's, and again, it's identifying, where they're strong. So like I said, if you look, got the DF3 in front of me. So if you look at the segmented, because we test from 3 different distances.
Yep.
So if you look at, for example, our long distance, which is roughly 18 feet starting position, the DF3 was one of the best. The Odysseys were quite a bit better, at least one of them. Oh, I'm sorry, not the DF3. I got that wrong. So actually the Odyssey square to square, really good from long distance. So it's about finding what you need, finding to an extent what suits your eyes, and ultimately what makes putts. But really interesting just to kind of see how this compared to mallets and blades generally.
Yeah, so taking this as a data set, and we say, okay, now we kind of do have these 3 distinct buckets of putters, if you will, right? And to say, okay, can we see, and I know that we're continuing to look at this, but like, because we have testers, we have individuals who tested all 3 putter, were parts of testing groups for all 3 different putter tests, and say, okay, are we seeing any sort of trends or information in the data that's leading us to additional questions around, or any answers toward the question of, are zero torque, this category of putter, are these better for golfers just in general, or is it like preference, like, hey, it's better for some, not better for the others? Like, is there anything that we're seeing that might suggest a shift in terms of, going from steel shafts and drivers to graphite shafts, or is like universally better and eventually everybody moved over, from steel to graphite? Are we seeing anything that says, hey, blade is becoming the steel shaft of the putter world, and now it's
as I said,
direction?
like looking at the 3 tests individually, in terms of, again, using the putt view handicap metric we have, which is derived from strokes gained. So it's basically a strokes gain converted to a handicap, because the feeling is most golfers have a general idea, understand handicap, at least on a comparative basis, where strokes gained is still somewhat confusing.
Sure.
So we have a putt view handicap metric that we use, and again, the zero torque and the mallets were very close. I haven't run the numbers to make this claim, but I would say, eyeballing it, I'm going to say if you ran it through it, you would find the performance statistically identical across the whole of a test pool.
Okay.
Whereas there was a measurable drop off from blades, and so I think what this tells us is that fewer golfers are likely to benefit from blades. It's not going to be no one, right? There's going to be golfers that are better off with blades. There are going to be golfers that are better off with traditional mallets, and some that are better off with zero torque. And that's before you get into the nuance of the toe hangs on conventional mallets and conventional blades and all of that stuff. But it's another option. It's a viable option, I think, for a lot of golfers. And I think kind of our next step is going to kind of look at the test pools, where were the overlaps, and grab out the golfers. And there was quite a bit from what I understand. But we'll look at data from just the golfers that participated in all three of our putter tests and kind of see if we can get a sense of, all right, like what excels where, and why even, and see kind of, again, try if we can figure out, like, all right, for what percentage of our golfers was this better, the same, worse, whatever it happens to be, right? Because it's always one of those three.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, too, if we're waiting to kind of reshape some of the narrative around what a great putter is, too, in the sense that, if we look back a generation or whatever, if I said, hey, name the best putters on tour over your lifetime as you've watched, et cetera, the one always comes up, right? You had a $10,000 putt from 8 feet, and you could hit it, or you could pick any player that's ever lived to putt it. Who would you pick? And by and large, people come up with names of players that used blade putters, would be my contention, because you're going to get a lot of Tiger, maybe Jack. You're going to get people, God, remember how good Brad Faxon was, and Lauren Roberts, and all these guys, and that was that. And you look at putting statistics now, right? And you look at putting statistics today, and we look at people in the top 10 on a strokes gained situation or an eyeball test, and my guess would be people are going to maybe more resonate with players that use a mallet. You say, hey, I would take 10 years ago Jason Day over maybe almost anybody.
Yeah, and I think, right, it's when you talk about Tiger, and Tiger's always an anomaly in that he has seldom ever used what anyone would describe as the best available technology of his time.
No, because he was the best available technology of his era. It was him, yeah.
He could putt with anything. He could drive with anything. His golf ball, he played Nike golf balls for years, right? So, there's a lot of stuff that looking back, you're like, wow, what if, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, it's easy to say, well, the best putters back in the day used blade. Yeah, because that's what they had.
Right. Right.
And so as the categories options grow, diversify, as the understanding of technology grows, it's just a different world. So, all that said, the first name on my list would probably be Brad Faxon.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But again, right? It's also. There's something about Tiger in a clutch situation that just feels different, whether or not statistically it is, right? But we all kind of have those memories of big putts, and if there's a big putt that's missed, you tend not to remember it. So
yeah, I think that's also true. It's also a thing where, again, part of me wonders if we're going to hear more about this as a area within kind of that mallet area, putting test world than we have. Certainly companies messing around with MOI and hosels and necks and things to bring those two worlds together. Maybe things people really liked about blade putters, but in a more mallet friendly shape. Like many come to mind, but Scotty's tagline on the 7.2, right? It's kind of this idea of, hey, blade like setup, feel, but mallet like MOI, kind of the best of both worlds.
Well, it's kind of an interesting side discussion, but when you talk about the things that limit golf club performance and what manufacturers provide to golfers,
mm-hmm.
cost is obviously a big deal.
Sure.
So you can't have, at least not if you want to sell enough of them to matter, you can't bundle all available space age technology into a driver and sell it for $1,200, right? Like,
right.
you have to hit a price point
right.
in every category.
Sure.
You've got to navigate the USGA rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one that is probably more of an obstacle than people consider is you have to navigate golfers' expectations of what a product should look like.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason, right? Like, golfers love like small irons and to an extent, things that look traditional. We talked about this with engineering guys. Like, what if you didn't have to conform to the expectations of how a product looks? Mm-hmm. And if you consider where we are in the putter space with, again, look at the DF 2.1.
Yeah.
You could argue the Link, certainly, even the DF 3, and you look at the Antidote putters.
Uh-huh.
You have, with the emergence of zero torque, I feel like you've also kind of shattered that rule, at least in the category. You've gotten over the hump of like, a putter has to look like this.
It's almost like anything goes, yeah.
Right, and so you've kind of broken through that limiting factor.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you've gotten into these big-ass, ugly-looking mallets that provide a lot of benefit to golfers, those restraints are off in the putter category, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, all right, well, what if golfers got to the same point in the iron category, right? Or, I mean, me personally, like wedge category, I don't know if I could ever get there, right? We've seen some like Mizuno
donkey shovels.
Like kind of exactly that kind of thing, right? Like these very kind of strange-looking wedges that had absurdly high CGs, so that anybody could get legitimate tour flight out of them. And again, they didn't pass the eyeball test at the time,
right?
But you wonder now that kind of, we had this breakthrough in the putter category, where people are like, I don't care what it looks like, I make putts with it,
right?
Like maybe that's like, hey, you know what? I don't care what it looks like, because I can fly it in there flat and stop it on a dime. And maybe that just kind of works its way up through the bag. Probably not, but it is an interesting kind of way to look at it. Like,
it's a great way to look at it, because
there has been this limiting factor, right? Mm-hmm. The eyeball test is a huge limiting factor in golf club design. And like you said, anything goes in the putter category right now. Yeah, so that's kind of changed some design rules.
I mean, it's a great question of like, what's the next place? Let's assume that putters are there. What's the next club in your bag that you would give manufacturers extreme latitude to pursue performance over aesthetics and say, hey, I don't care what this thing looks like. If I get meaningful performance benefit from it to the point where I'm willing to take the laughs and the jabs and the whatever, I will do it. Is it a fairway wood? Is it a driver? Is it, like you said, wedges? Like, that might be one of the last. Irons?
We've mentioned it several times before, but it's worth bringing up again in the context of this putter test. But we did, I was probably a decade ago where we asked everybody to rate, all of our testers to rate every putter in the test based on looks. Like, how much do you like the way it looks? Are you likely to play it?
Yeah.
And there was an almost inverse relationship between what they liked and what actually performed well for them. Right. So it is, if nothing else, it's raises awareness that sometimes golfers can get in their own way, which I think we know, as guy's perpetually in his own way.
Yeah. For sure. We'll see. It's going to be super fascinating. Like I said, we're going to dig deeper into the data, information, etc. You saw some names pop up there on the test. I was surprised a little, like you said, you have to figure out what areas you're looking at as well, and looking at short putts or long putts, medium length putts, etc. Even roll was creeping back in there a little bit. I was seeing them a little bit more, and it's possible they'll have a couple more coming out at some point. I think even roll is going to lean into that space some, so that again, with both the 2 and the 1 ranking in the very top third of our test for sure, if not just off the podium, it makes me wonder, is this kind of a route that even roll is going to lean into heavily? We've seen them lean into performance stuff before, so who knows? We shall see.
And it's nice too that you have a new category that credit Odyssey and now TaylorMade for this, but like it is now within the realm of affordability.
Yeah.
Cause
you're not talking $600, $700. Yeah.
Right. Say whatever you want about Lab. Right. Obviously, very successful brand. People love the product, but it is not an inexpensive putter by any stretch of the imagination. And part of that comes from the fact that it is the heads are milled here, the weights are milled in the U.S. and everything's assembled here. So there are higher costs associated with that.
Sure.
Whereas Odyssey, mass produced overseas, you can get it for less. So it is attainable technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to the degree, I mean, I'm sure they'll figure this out, hopefully. But lead time, like if people want it now, that's a tough one, right? That's the, are you going to wait?
I'm guessing yes.
4, 6, 8, 12 weeks?
6 to 8 weeks on a custom right now is what Lab's showing. Probably, JJ Spawn did not help that situation. I'm sure.
Right. Right. And there's plenty of people that are willing to wait and whatever, but that is a barrier. Depending on.
Reason is why custom makes sense, right? If you want to go deep in the weeds on choosing one of 723 alignment aids that suits your eye, or
right,
you want the blue one, like whatever it happens to be.
Yeah,
right?
So interesting stuff there. Before I talk about my Japanese irons, I feel like all that's happening now in the golf ball world is people are coming out with stripes. Am I overreacting, Tony? Is everything a striped golf ball now? We had AVX before with kind of the 360 look. Now we got another yellow stripe one. What in the name of stripes is going on out there?
Right? Maybe this is an area where we're starting to break through. And, you can say, all right, there's nothing particularly original about putting a stripe on a golf ball. I went down the list in the article I wrote, like just about everybody. Like, you're better off naming brands that don't have some version of a stripe at this point. Like Bridgestone, I think it might be. But yeah, so Callaway, right, a few months or a month or two ago, whatever, released a yellow stripe, not just stripe, because this is stripe.
This is
TaylorMade has
Yep.
stripe, and so Callaway has yellow stripe, which is obviously very different.
Clearly.
No, but so they expanded the offering, moving from just Chrome Soft into Chrome Tour X. Not Chrome Tour Triple Diamond, but I actually played with them over the weekend. I've said it before. I really love, whether you want to call it a stripe, however you want to phrase it, like a wide alignment aid that is stripe-like in some regard.
Right.
Playing with them for a couple years, and and as we discussed, right, the kind of the Jertson approach, right, the Balnamic multi-ball method.
Approach. Yeah.
So that for me has kind of been the struggle. Is like, all right, I play, let's say I'm playing a Chrome Tour as my regular ball, and then when I get into the wind, I switch to AVX, and all of a sudden I've got, in addition to a little different feel on the green, now I have two different looks. Like I can't get the same alignment aid on both, and so for me it's like, all right, well, Chrome Tour X could be a solid par 3 ball for me, right? Flies a little bit higher, spins
Probably slightly more than Chrome Tour, right? Or should, theoretically.
So that's that for me. I'm like, that could be a decent par 3 ball if we're, again, using that Balnamic multi-ball approach.
Yep.
And so now I'm like, all right, I just need somebody to put a big-ass stripe on something that flies low and doesn't spin much like AVX. It's, again, great wind ball. But it would be nice to have that continuity of visual appearance on the green.
You could just get a yellow highlighter.
Also, this may just be I'm a nutbag and could be the only guy thinking about this stuff.
Get a yellow highlighter. They'll give you something to do on your Saturday nights. Just get them.
Just send a few dozen AVX to Callaway and be like, hey, could you just run these through the machine real quick?
I'm sure they'd be happy to. I'm sure that'd be. I'm sure that'd be green lighted right away. No big deal. Totally fine. We'd be happy to do that.
I am like that. That's where I'm at. Like, I think there's a benefit. I would encourage everybody to at least try it. I believe in wide alignment stripe like technology. I'm sold. So I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to play a ball that doesn't have a big ass stripe of some kind on it. So like, again, I'm gonna need somebody to put a bright neon yellow stripe.
Maybe that was the actual answer to the question I asked before of like, in your bag where you're willing to kind of defy convention, if you will, and like anything kind of goes or whatever. Like, maybe that's the next one is visual technology. Does that become
Yeah,
a
and
thing?
there's a difference though, right, between like, not to single out Vice, because I think it's fundamentally a cool thing, like it's fun, right?
Yeah.
But there's no technology in a Vice drip.
Right.
It's just,
Here's the
yeah,
Vice Galaxy ball. Like, this thing is cool as hell.
super cool looking, but
Absolutely.
there's, again, how does that help me above and beyond the performance?
It's my
qualities
mini
of the
golf
ball?
go-to ball, though. I bring
Right?
my own
Yeah,
with
how does
me.
that help me anywhere on a golf course where,
Right.
again, this you can align off the tee, and that's been Vice's talking point with their
Yep.
new stripe design,
Yep.
or obviously on the putting green. And again, I am solidly at the point where I don't want to putt with anything that doesn't have a stripe on it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to talk to the guys who played with me on Sunday, they would be like, I wouldn't be shocked if they all showed up with striped golf balls next week. That's how good I putt.
That's the Tony effect.
That's
I wonder, do you think that another company could? I mean, we saw this with golfballs.com back in the day, right? Where they could then, a big part of their thing was, the ability to print on 360 degrees of a golf ball, right? So you could do stripes, you could do stuff, whatever. What would prevent a company like them from saying, hey, we can now do 360 yellow alignment? Like, is that such a proprietary thing, or is it something they could work around and be like, hey, we can do that now too? Send us your AVXs.
So let me grab something here.
Oh, now Tony needs props.
Here we go. Yeah.
I asked a question requiring props.
This is the Srixon Q Star Tour that I got my Albatross with several years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I use it to illustrate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I want to golfballs.com put a stripe on my ball, right?
Yep.
Stripe, but then when you get to a conventional side stamp, now you're perpendicular to the stripe.
Right.
So whereas all of these stripe balls are designed from top to bottom, so to speak, where all of the information, if you will, for lack of the side stamp, the player number, all of that stuff is all contained within the stripe by design.
What if there's like a translucent stripe that it would be like the paint or whatever would allow anything?
You could do like an 80% stripe, and honestly, and as I was gonna text somebody at Callaway about this and realized, right, we've talked about the stripe, the yellow stripe, not being an entirely unique original design.
Yeah.
And so
I'm just wondering if there's ways around it, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably could, so for example, right? You got, what if you did like instead of 360, I don't know, call it 200 and some odd degrees of stripe, where you don't bring the side stamp in. And that was
272.
That was the point I was. So if you look at both of these TaylorMade, as I spin them around, and the Callaway here, what they have in common is it's busy. So there is something absolutely everywhere.
Yep.
And there were times where it would be like, I would just love it if you didn't have that additional alignment right there. I don't need it, right? I've got a side stamp, and I've got the player number with arrows, and I've got a logo, and I've got this big ass stripe, which is what I'm here for anyway.
Right.
So
which is what you're here for.
Maybe we could just leave a little bit without something, but otherwise,
yeah,
I'm all in.
Okay. Let's finish up with this. Toulon's making irons. Did you see that picture?
Yeah. Did you see the picture I sent? Because I saw those irons more than a year ago.
Yeah, I know. So we're talking here, Toulon family, Toulon Design, Sean Toulon, previously of both TaylorMade and Callaway brands. They ventured out on their own, right? And now it's kind of a family thing. Preston, Tony, the boys.
Again.
They're all Dad, Sean. They're all working together. Out of the gate, right? It was all putters, and they have some fantastic looking, feeling putters. Are a lot of cool designs, and they've kind of done this limited drip run, and then kind of smaller batch stuff, etc. There was always some rumors of irons potentially coming out. I confirmed with them today that the pictures that were out were for a small batch limited run that was going to be Japan only at this particular time. So TBD on the details there. So if you're not in Japan, if you don't know the Japanese distributor for Toulon personally, you're probably not getting a set. So they look very clean. They look simple. As you know well, Tony, Sean Toulon designed a lot of iron models at both TaylorMade and Callaway, even though people would probably only associate his name with putters. Sean Toulon designed a lot of irons that many people really, really enjoyed. And so not surprising to see them dip into that. Oh, okay. There you go. That's certainly something we can throw up there. So TBD on more of that. Here's one you can get now, Tony. That is Makino. And
it's always interesting, right? Like, I guess you got to put the font up that way. Yeah. Somebody needs to name their iron brand something that looks the same upside down as it does right side up, like O's and W's, I would think.
Oh, it could. Yeah, Mom Wow, something.
Yeah.
Mama Wow. Just tell you a quick story about these. I'm going to have an article coming up about them, kind of talking about what they are. It's an interesting thing because in Japan, we tend to think about all these legacy brands, right? That like reach back into the annals of history and pull forward samurai warrior technology or like attention to detail and these things. And you think, okay, some of these have been around for a long time. Take your Fujimoto, take Kioi, take Miura and Endo Forge stuff, and all these ones that, like I said, have been around for a long, long time. But if you think about that, something has to replace those at some point, or there's room for a new brand, and that's where I'm really, really interested in these guys as a new face of what Japanese gear is and means, because it's not as closed off as it was before, where you really needed somebody in that domestic market to get you stuff. It was hard to get products out of Japan into other areas of the world. It's a different era now, and I think my hunch, my hypothesis would be a brand like this has a lot of characteristics that are emblematic of what this next generation of JDM clubs is going to be. And so if you see their stuff out there, some of it's pretty wild, some of it's really cool looking, it has some very visually distinct elements, particularly the putters. But yet this is the iron, this is the 88B3, this is the iron that they're kind of calling their hallmark piece, which is interesting because it's pretty plain. And so it reminds
me. That's a blade. That's a blade.
It's not though. It's a semi hollow cavity. It's a semi hollow. You would play these. You could absolutely play these. Even in like 5-6 iron. They're crazy forgiving. They're hollowed out on the inside. They have kind of a cool tri-cut sole as well. So you get a wider sole. You get more weight low. And yet you have a beveled kind of leading edge and kind of trail edge relief too. So the sole plays thinner than it looks for those of us that are maybe a hair steeper. And get this. Only $350 a head.
Only.
Hell of a deal. No, they have another brand called NNRG, which people should check out. Way cheaper, or not way cheaper, significantly cheaper, but still a lot of the same Japanese elements and quality pieces to it. So if anybody knows anything about these guys, I'd be interested to hear your feedback and take on it. But that's kind of what this article is about, and kind of this thing that I'm watching in the JDM space is kind of what is the next generation of JDM clubs? Like, what do we see happening? What's new? What's unique? What's different? This is going to be the first one that I'm going to talk about. Then there's another company that's going to come after them, and then one more after that. And then we'll see. Maybe we'll do more. Maybe we won't. If there's other Japanese companies out there that people are super interested in, let me know. It is like by far my top area for like interest that I like to dig into and nerd out on and go down rabbit holes on. And
it's
there's just not many of us out there, but it's fine.
It's amazing how many kind of like, I watch the USGA list every week for drivers, and it's always, like just these Japanese brands pop up, and you're like, What are these things?
Yeah. It's wild. It's fun. It's different. So, anyway. Whew. That's all I got, man. You have anything else? That's a lot of gear talk. Checking my list.
Real quick, I think. Let me make sure I can say this.
Oh.
Let me make sure we're clear of the embargo, because I lose track of things, man.
Yeah, we don't routinely break
like
embargoes.
this is the last week of June, right? This is the last week of June, so we gotta be all good to talk about Vokey wedges, right?
Oh,
we can mention that, right?
I think so. My bad. I forgot. I was. Yeah. Yes. Mention it.
So I'm just all right. So yeah. Oh no, we can't.
No,
we got to cut it all out. We're gonna be a day too early.
Oh. Well, in place of that, I will mention that I am loving my Cozy Earth sheets. I'm loving my Cozy Earth products, and they've been nice enough to continue to extend 40% off across the site. All you have to do is use the code NoPutts, and you get that action. And also get this. I can't believe this part, because I'm definitely going to see if this works. A 10-year warranty on all the bedding products. So if the sheets wear out in 10 years...
extends to my dog.
if it wears out in 10 years, send it back. 10 years on all bedding products. That's like a compressor warranty. That's a good compressor warranty on a refrigerator. 10 years. 10 years on sheets.
I gotta tell you, like, I don't know if I'm old school or just old. You know, to borrow from Nate Bargatze. I'm from the 1900s. So like for me, like I'm still in this world where like, unless they're gym shorts should have belt loops. So that's like this frame of mind that I've been trying to break out of, and so I got these.
Shorts should have belt loops.
Right, so I got the Cozy Earth. They're like the stretch bamboo shorts. They're like elastic drawstring pockets, but they have the faux fly in the front.
Faux fly.
Super comfortable. Yeah, I've been wearing them. I'm like, they could be the pair of pants that gets me over my need for belt loops.
They're challenging your paradigm of what constitutes a short.
Yeah, super comfortable, stretchy. I'm loving it.
What are we gonna do? Well, we'll be back next week with some 4th of July picks, and I guess might have a wedge from Vokey we can talk about next week. We shall see.
Not mentioned. There'll
be something. There's always something. Until then, we out.